Hi, folks. I'm Dan McDermott. Welcome. This is the McDermott Report. We air live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific every weeknight. And joining me tonight is Emily Williams, also in Lynchburg, Virginia. Emily, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
That's what she always says. Emily is the senior political writer for the Lynchburg Times newspaper, which I'm also involved in. And we've got a good lineup here. There's the first story is, I don't know. Emily, did you watch the videos, the Al Sharpton, Pat Buchanan thing?
I did.
Okay. If you have not watched, you've got to, this is a must-see. It's like 6 minutes. So after the show, watch it and make your own mind. But I have links on my Google Plus page, which is gplus.to/McDermott. And Emily is... E.K. Williams, right?
Emily K.W.
Emily K.W. Okay. Little dyslexic moment there. Anyway, what this story was, when I first heard it, I heard it that Pat Buchanan was on Al Sharpton's show. Al Sharpton's the new 6 p.m. host. And they were discussing President Obama, and Al Sharpton said, or Pat Buchanan referred to your boy, and Al Sharpton hit him back. My boy, it's your president. It's my president. Who are you? What did you say? That kind of thing. And I read the story, and I formulated an opinion along the lines of, oh, here we go again. Then I watched the video. Now, before I say what I thought, Emily, what was your take having seen the video, and did you go through the same metamorphosis of opinion than I did?
Well, I when I first read the headline, I was undecided. I knew that obviously Buchanan was going to come back and say it was not a racial slur. And in the past, when incidents like this have happened, there's been things that you could probably argue might have been like a subconscious racial slur, but obviously not on purpose. And when I watched the video for this, I really thought that, he in no way meant it in a racist sense. But it did make me think of, it brought up a whole different issue, which is, the lack of respect and the lack of reverence people have for our current president. There's been a disconnect with really any sort of respect for him by a lot of people in the nation. And I think that him calling him, your boy to Reverend Sharpton was really, almost a commentary on Obama's age, perhaps, and really this thought that, the president doesn't represent all of us, which, he was voted in by a majority and, elected in the way that we elect presidents. So I think it brings up a lot of larger issues.
Well, okay. Are you suggesting that President Bush was held in reverence during his 8-year term? I mean, this isn't anything new. I remember they were burning him in effigy, calling him a terrorist, a murderer.
Oh yeah, of course. But I think that.
Go ahead.
I think that happened probably in the second of his 2 terms more than the first. I think that, based on the recount and all of the messy things that happened around the 2004 election, I think that it was almost a different issue. But I think that during his first term, especially, there was still an understanding that he was the president. And I think Obama has faced, just the disrespect from the beginning. And, even before he was elected, there was a lot of question about whether he was too young and too unexperienced to become president. And I think that is something that's been dropped a little from conversation, but is still very present in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. The other, I think Abraham Lincoln, there have been comparisons made as far as the experience level, or Jack Kennedy, guys who weren't nationally known figures, for decades before running, like a McCain or a Reagan. But Abraham Lincoln was mercilessly picked on for his physical features, for everything. If you look up Abraham Lincoln political cartoons, this was. But I don't think the right holds Barack Obama in any higher or lower reverence than the left did Bush. I think that's just what we do because we have freedom of speech, and they're going to pick on the president regardless of who he is. The other side will. But what my thing was, this was blown out of proportion by the media. It was, if you actually watch it as we did, when I first read the story, I was all not hot under the collar, but I thought, here we go again. Sharpton, the way it was described is he was outraged and, but then I actually watched it and I almost owe Sharpton an apology. They were going at it and they're both skilled at this. Buchanan has his shtick, right? And he'll get under your skin. And that's why he's on TV and paid a lot of money to do it. He's really good at it. I love the McLaughlin Group. I love when Buchanan's on. And Sharpton, they were having a good give and take, and they're obviously friendly with each other, you can tell. And then Buchanan said something, and he did say it with the racial tinge. He said, "You're a boy," the way he said it. But he was doing it to get a dig in because that's, he's a good, Irish Catholic, street fighter. And then Sharpton, had crocodile tears over it, and said blah blah blah. And then they went into this fight analogy, quick save perhaps, and then they continue with their discussion, and then Sharpton threw it back toward the end of the little 5-minute clip of this, and said like, "Well, your boy," blah 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 blah, and they ended up, "Hey, thanks so much for being on." It was nothing. And I watched most of it tonight, Sharpton's show at 6, which I don't normally watch because frankly he's not the best thing on at 6. But he's warmed up a lot to me since the Tawana Brawley days. But I just found it totally blown out of proportion. It wasn't a racial incident. It was nothing that you wouldn't have seen on this show 5 at 5 o'clock on Fox. I think the other day that the host said that SHIT twice during the show or something, and sorry. But then they want to blow this big, Pat Buchanan, the right-wing guy, and Al Sharpton, his nemesis, and as though Al Sharpton was genuinely offended, upset, stormed off the set almost. It just seemed blown out of proportion. Am I wrong? They seemed buddy after. It wasn't that big a deal. Why are we making it a big deal? Why is it our top story? Because people will pay attention. Yeah,
I think that, I think that the media has had a tendency to over-report on issues like this since Barack Obama became a public figure. And, it's almost like they're hyper aware because they don't want to ignore it or they don't want to miss something. But again, we're talking about the media that, it has blown larger things out of proportion in the past. Smaller things out of proportion in the past. So I think that it's not surprising that it happened. It's just like, it's the same thing with that we were talking the other night about the leader of a Tea Party group getting arrested for piracy. It just, some things get latched onto and they get, blown up, and it's just the way of the mass media, and, it's not a good thing, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, I think I think rather than showing a lack of reverence for the president, I think it's more of a lack of reverence for Al Sharpton. When he said it, he was trying to get a dig, and I think, they got to sell papers, they got to get hits. And when you talk about something, is Pat Buchanan, was it racist? Is this the next Imus in the Morning thing? And of course, because of Al Sharpton's prominent role in the Don Imus episode where he called for his firing. But, after he did that, when he got another gig, I remember seeing Al Sharpton on some show when he finally got the gig on Fox, and he said, "I have no issue with this." He said he's done his, he got fired. He shouldn't be unemployed for the rest of his life. What he said was, the terms that Don Imus used insulting. He was kind of egged on during the show, and when you pay a shock jock X number of years, eventually they're going to say something over the line, right? And that was a different thing. That was these young athletes, this female team from Rutgers. They shouldn't be thrust in the spotlight that manner. That was insulting. So, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, I think another thing that's worth mentioning, of course, is that we're commentating on this as, people that are obviously not, people that are not really in minority groups at all, and that it is hard to judge, like how that phrase might make others feel, and even if he didn't mean it as a racial slur, the fact that he did say it with such inflection, could be something that we're just not aware of. It could hit a vein with people. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Here were two white people deciding whether a third is racist, and who are we to say? But anyway, that's our top story tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. And there's a stink bug who's very attracted to our TV lights in here. All right. I want to talk about this a lab in Alabama. All of the stories we discussed, the video links, the story links, it's all on my Plus page. And Emily also put it out there as well on hers. And if you'd like to find these later, this is August 3rd, 2011. And if you go to my page, I'll have it. It's also be under the YouTube video. But anyway, this story, this lab lost evidence in the praying moms case. What's your take on this whole? It's interesting that this woman, the kid's sick, and they pray to heal the kid. The kid doesn't, this has been in cop shows, this whole thing, because we have a separation of church and state. The government can't tell you, they can't tell Christians what to believe or what to practice. Now they've in certain circumstances, such as this, people have been prosecuted. You can't declare yourself a Rasta and start, smoking a blunt down Main Street. So there are certain occasions where the government stepped in. Warren Jeffs is another one we've discussed, where he has, I don't even know what they call them, but de facto wives, women who live as wives, and one's was apparently 12 and one 15. And my view on that, I said before, was I could care less what consenting adults do. It's none of my business. I think it's weird. But if that's their culture they were brought up in, and this church goes back hundreds of years, then that's their business, I guess. But when you have a 12-year-old, that's a different story. That's not a consenting adult. A 15-year-old who has his kid, apparently, or alleged from DNA testing, that's not an adult. So it's kind of the similar thing here. If you're just, so stupid that you would do this to yourself and you end up dying and you're 30, then that's okay, fine. That's your belief. I think it's ridiculous, and you can believe that if you want. But this is a case where the state stepped in, and frankly, you could argue that it's unconstitutional for the state to step in, even if you have this child, except you could argue that the child is not of age to make a decision for him or herself. But it's still, it's one of these cans of worms you get when you have such a blanket prohibition of any kind of state involvement, as it has been interpreted over the years by the Supreme Court. What do you think?
I mean, it sounds like the one reason that she didn't serve any jail time was because of this lost evidence. It's tough to say that this is a separation of church and state issue because of that. Obviously she did go to trial, and she did get convicted of something. It doesn't actually mention what she ended up getting convicted of in the end. But I mean, just the fact that she was found guilty of something means that, they obviously saw this as stepping across that boundary, necessarily. So, this it really does just come down to I bet it was something like criminal neglect that she was charged with. And it's really interesting because, I mean, her son was 17, so he was just on the side of being a minor, and I think this case probably would have been much different had he been, on the other side of 18. But yeah, it's a shame when, when issues in the courts come down to, errors such as this.
Yeah, you have a right to refuse treatment. A rescue squad, I saw once, I was actually with the rescue squad, and there was some guy drunk, and I think his wife had beat the heck out of him or something. Blood was everywhere on his head, and he refused treatment. And the cops arrested the guy on some like disorderly conduct that they wouldn't have otherwise. Specifically because once you're incarcerated, then you can't refuse treatment because you're a ward of the state. So they arrested him just to make him get treatment for half his head was missing or something. That's an exaggeration, but yeah. So they do that. This reminds me, this case of a parent basically just letting their kid die, and praying when there's medical treatment reminds me of this story. A minister told me as a kid that there's a guy, the flood's coming, and it reaches the upper bedroom, and a boat comes by, and the guy's like, "No, the Lord is my shepherd; He will save me." And then the water is up to the top of the roof. The guy's up there. Another boat comes by, and he says, "Oh, the Lord is my shepherd; He'll save me." And then the water's up to his neck, and a helicopter comes by, and "Oh, the Lord is my shepherd; He'll save me." The guy drowns, and then he goes to heaven. And he says, "Lord, I believed in you. Why didn't you save me?" He said, "What are you talking about? I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter." You don't have to laugh, I guess, but but like
no, I've heard that one before.
Yeah, you've heard that, but
I've heard that one
a couple times. But anyway, the whole thing is, the Lord creates doctors and medicine as much as He creates anything, and I don't know. Anyway, so that's that. So we don't support letting your kid die when there's medical treatment available. Okay, so hosting Mubarak's in a cage, big change from February 10th when he gave that speech saying that he wasn't going to resign, and then I think within 24 hours he and his family were on a helicopter to Sharm el-Sheikh, the resort, and then I guess something went wrong with him physically, and or he's gotten some acting courses, and he's in a hospital bed now. This pathetic spectacle coming in, and my thoughts are, the old saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," and we were so friendly with him over the years because he was on our side against Islamic extremists who were hell-bent on destroying the United States, and so we, in our interests, we tend to tolerate brutality and repression of dissent, and not that every country is capable of a Western-style democracy. I don't think that's the case. In these regions of Afghanistan where you have 90% illiteracy, I just don't see, a Western-style democracy as we know it working there. Now the government we're propping up there is corrupt. But what are your thoughts? Is this 30-year dictator, friend of the United States, is wheeled in to a cage, ostensibly to be tried for crimes? And it was an interesting crime. I mean, it was sort of like how they got the mobster, what's his name, from the Untouchables movie. They Al Capone. They got him not for killing all those people, but they got him, I think, on taxes or something. What do you think about this turn of events?
Well, I know that Mubarak has had health problems in the past, so this isn't like a random, he just got sick for the sake of court kind of deal. He has been sickly for, I think, the last 5 years off and on, enough so that they've been talking about a successor for him for a while. And I think that, for all of the people present at the hearing, I mean, the article mentions, parents of children that were killed during the protests, being there, and this was just like actually just the symbolism of him being in a cage and on trial was really satisfying for a lot of Egyptians and something that they've been waiting for a while. And in a society where their freedom of speech has been so repressed, I can see why this is really the ultimate symbol of victory for them to actually see him in a courtroom. Now, I do know that Egypt is full of corruption, and anything that happens there is going to take a lot of hard work, but, I mean, all the best of luck to them. Egypt's been through a lot in its history as a nation and a land. Egypt has been through many different rulers, and many different peoples have, presided over just the public in Egypt, and hopefully whoever comes to power next, maybe it's time for the Egyptians actually to be their own leaders, for real and not just a fake democracy.
Well, you can call it what you will. All the generals who are running the country now are all appointed by Mubarak. It's a crazy situation. I guess they're making lemonade out of lemons, and they've been pressured into putting the guy on trial. So we'll see how it goes. All right. You ever had unpasteurized milk?
No.
I think it sounds gross,
I have not.
but apparently it's all the rage with some of these groups. And did you see this story? There was like a SWAT team raid. Now, Drudge linked to it, and it was written by, I don't know if it's an advocacy group or somebody with an opinion. It wasn't an unbiased article. They swept in guns a-blazing or whatever. But this is a whole thing where these folks, I don't know if it's the fluoride people have moved on or what, but they're all into unpasteurized milk. And it's illegal, so I guess they had the SWAT team come in and raid this natural food store that advocated this. I think the people that were arrested, and they took the money from the drawer, according to this piece, and that one had been featured in a documentary. So, I mean, they were known advocates of this. I'm not sure what the whole thing is. Is it supposed to be better for you, or what? I mean, it's...
Yeah, actually... I forget whether it was a Frontline or I've watched a made-for-TV special on this, just a report on it, and the idea is that pasteurization kills the bacteria, which is why we have it, but it kills good bacteria, which a lot of people are really worried about the fact that we've taken so much bacteria out of our lives, internally and externally, that are more susceptible to disease. So this is the whole idea, like everything from, people advocating using regular soap instead of antibacterial lotions to, eating yogurt with live cultures. But this is really the extreme of that. And the scientists that were interviewed in the report that I saw said that there's no scientific proof that consuming raw milk actually helps your health. And there's a lot of problems. I mean, like, the biggest problem with raw milk is that unless you're drinking it, like, straight from the farm, from the cow, there's a lot of time for the milk to be exposed to bad bacteria, to grow bad bacteria, and, all the things that can kill you and make you really sick. And so that's why there's regulation on it, and that's why it needs to be pasteurized, because, how many of us live next door to a farm anymore? So, this for me falls under the same category as the parents that aren't vaccinating their children. I mean, there are certain arguments that, modern society has brought upon us, that we're starting to hurt ourselves with how much we're protecting ourselves. But there are some things like, not vaccinating your child against smallpox or drinking unpasteurized milk that are just, it's dumb. I mean, it really just falls into the dumb category. It's fads, and it's, people that aren't doing their research and just following what, is the cool thing that all of the other people said that they should do. And, it just comes down to common sense, really.
Yeah, I mean, what is milk? Okay, milk is something mammals produce. It's one of the ways you can tell if something's a mammal. they produce milk, and so infants can consume it before they can handle raw food. Because the whole point is, I mean, you're in the womb, and your only food source is the umbilical cord, nutrients from your mother, and then you're born. The umbilical cord is severed, and you cannot go to McDonald's right away and get a Happy Meal. So to bridge there is the milk from the mother, so she's still creating and dispensing food for you as you get weaned off of that and on to solid food. No mammal species except humans consumes milk after infancy. You're not supposed to. Now, we like it. I love my cheese. I bought some cheese today, so I'm part of the problem. But the fact is, we're not designed to drink milk or eat cheese. You're designed to drink milk at infancy directly from your mom's breast. And that's what milk is. After that, when you're done, you're not supposed to drink it anymore. So we choose to continue drinking it. And then Louis Pasteur discovered that if you heat milk to a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, that it can keep longer. And so now everything's pasteurized. And if you're going to drink milk, I suppose if they crawl under the cow and suck on the nipple of the cow and get the milk fresh that way, probably they'd be okay.
Oh, that's disgusting.
If you're getting a visual, but I mean, let's do it. Last night we talked about a hot dog factory. Tonight we're going to talk about cow boobies. But really, that's the way you're supposed to drink udders. Okay. People don't have udders. That would be an insult, but to a cow, you have to say it. But that's the bottom line. I mean, milk is supposed to be consumed by infants from their mother, directly from the dispensing mechanism, right? So if you're going to choose to put it in a container and hold it for some period of time, they used to just, I guess, deliver it and you drink it, and sometimes people would get sick or what have you, and then they discovered this wonderful process that caused people to not get sick. So if you're going to get milk and you're going to drink it, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not if it were a religious thing, I think they might have an argument. But because it's not, it's just sort of a Mother Earth thing, I guess, be one with nature. But I'll be impressed if they went there and sucked it right from the udder of a cow. In fact, that would make a great episode. If they want to do that, we can make it a segment on the show. So we will continue to consume pasteurized dairy products. And I will start calling them udders, so Emily doesn't get on me. All right, now that you've got that visual. All right, this is now we're getting into the fun stories. Not that one wasn't fun. Missouri has banned public school teachers, from friending students on Facebook. That's what the story said, but really it's any social network. And of course, I'm more on Google Plus now than Facebook, and you probably are too. And I don't know, I see the point, but I think this is stupid. I think this is like saying you can't have a telephone because you could surreptitiously call a student and arrange something inappropriate with a phone. I think it would be neat for teachers to have a Facebook page, have all the students on it, and then if there's an assignment kids are having trouble with, everything's public and transparent. A kid can ask a question, the teacher can answer it, and they can have a give and take. Any of the students can observe that. I think that that's a good thing. And why limit that ability as a teaching tool and a learning tool? Because 0.1% of teachers would abuse it. What do you think?
Well, I think that, putting the issue of whether or not this is right aside, and I'll get back to that, but this is just it's a classic example of just superfluous government, period. There's no reason why on a state level there needs to be a law banning teacher-student friending on social networking sites. Because this is the kind of thing that could easily be handled on, the school district level. But, if there's a school district that decides that they've had problems with it and they want to write, a bylaw about it, they put it right in their handbook and it's done. something that doesn't have to go through lawmakers and take up their time. And this is just, it's a waste of time and resources, I think, period. On the other hand, I know that, social media is tricky because it's both personal and public. So, you of course don't want your teacher friending your kid and then posting pictures of them drinking or what have you. And, teachers have a life outside of school too. So they're allowed to do things like that. So I think that, it's a tricky line, and, even more reason that it needs to be handled on the most local level possible.
Yeah, what's the point in having principals and school boards? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it seems stupid to me. This is a law written by morons to keep everyone up. Obviously written by people who don't use Facebook or know anything about how social networks work. All right, before we go on to the other stuff, I'm looking at your profile on Google+, and you've got the NPR story, the Internet Explorer story. Just go into that. This was great. I'm so glad we didn't. I almost covered it, right? I'm so glad I didn't. So now I can say, well, I saw right through it. We have a quality control standards on this program, but actually I just forgot to list it. What do you think? It turns out that Internet Explorer, or at least the study that was released, was a hoax, right?
Yeah.
Give us the story here.
It was originally picked up. I think the story was originally picked up by the BBC. But what happened is this company, and I use company lightly because no one's quite sure what exactly they are because I haven't responded to efforts to contact them, put out a press release saying that they just completed a study that found that people who use Internet Explorer have lower IQs than people that use browsers such as Safari or Firefox. Or Chrome, and everyone, of course, jumped right on it because, it's a tech story, and the company has a pretty legitimate-looking website, and they did have, a full, although the study was relatively short for studies, I think it was 10 pages, but I read parts of it, and I read their conclusions, and it was written by someone who obviously knows how to write academically. But their conclusion was something along the lines of software developers need to stop wasting time making sure that their websites run on Internet Explorer, since they don't want the people that use Internet Explorer to be looking at their websites anyway, essentially. So, of course, I posted this morning to my Google Plus page, and one of my followers commented on it saying, this is probably a waste of government money. Someone probably commissioned this report and paid a lot of money for it. And, I wrote back and said it was probably more of a private matter. But then I'd say maybe an hour or two later, it was revealed that the whole thing was fake. BBC actually went back and did more reporting and found out that, the study, the figures from the study were cited as coming from an institute that had no knowledge of figures like that existing. So, the company's website had another press release that came out today saying that Internet Explorers were going to sue them over the results of the study. And, after reading that, it was pretty obvious that the whole thing was just, along the lines of H.G. Wells on the radio. It was it kind of, it was a hoax, but I think it wasn't a malicious hoax. I think it kind of reads like an article from The Onion almost. The fact that they sent it out as a press release, that they actually, sent it to people isn't a good thing, because being a member of the media, we should look into, the BBC should have looked into stuff like that more thoroughly, as should have NPR reported on it. I think CNET and a whole bunch of other people. And it's obvious that there should have been more reporting. But in this age of internet regurgitation, everyone was just citing everyone else. And the study was there. Everyone
We're
had
dancing.
a copy of the study.
Okay, there are two observations. One is the BBC of all people. They're great at this. April 1st is always wonderful. When I was there, they're famous for things like saying that the spaghetti harvest was either good or bad that year, and they showed people, harvesting spaghetti from spaghetti trees in Italy, and it was hysterical. And I use that line. I tell people, because I've lost weight, right, and I'm gone from the 180s to the 150s, and I've told people, eat natural stuff, raw milk. No, I'm just kidding. But eat like fruits and vegetables, meat. Don't eat crap in a box, with 75 ingredients. Your body's not designed to process that. That's why we're all fat. The reason we're fat is staring us. It's hidden in plain sight. But anyway, I say, there is no spaghetti tree. Tooth decay first occurred in ancient Egypt. We know this from the mummies. When people first started processing grains into breads, that's when we first started to get rotting teeth. Animals don't get tooth decay, right? To the degree we do. But anyway, so that said, of all the places for it to originate into the mainstream media, the BBC, that's great. But we're all dancing around this. What browser do you use?
I use Firefox.
Okay, here's the thing. For those people who are technically inclined, as we are, the reason nobody called this study into question was we believed it and it made sense. As much as this might offend some people, that's true, though. We're like, well, I could believe that, I mean, Internet Explorer sucks, and I hate it. Every time I use it, it makes me say, import this stuff or ask me later. I don't want to have to do that. Firefox has just gotten so bloated. I use Chrome now, and the more I'm getting into Plus, I'm actually getting ready to dump my BlackBerry. Sorry, Canada. But it's been great. I'll miss you, but I'm getting ready to dump it for Android. Most likely, specifically because I'm sick of their browser speed. I want to, but when I read this, I was thinking, I believe this. This makes sense. Isn't that awful that we would judge people based on the browser they use? But it's almost like comparing them. It's like someone who walks when they could drive. I mean, it's like, what are you doing? It's icing out, I don't know. But that's the funny thing that everyone's afraid to say, except us, that it's believable that people would have a lower IQ on average. Not everyone who's stupid uses Internet Explorer, and not everyone who uses Internet Explorer is stupid, but I could believe there'd be a correlation in IQ and what browser you use. Maybe that could be some kind of test. I used to give everyone who worked for me an IQ test when I was at Randolph-Macon Academy. And I remember I took several online tests. You ever taken an IQ test, Emily?
Yeah, I have a while ago.
All right. Can you fess up and tell me what you got? Then I'll tell you what I got.
I have no idea.
Whatever.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can tell you my SAT score.
That was probably good. What was that?
1560.
1560?
Yeah.
Why are you working for me? You should be. You ask yourself that every day. But yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you're a smart individual. But yeah, I got a 129. I took an IQ test, and 130 is genius. And I didn't know part of it was timed, and I was goofing off with it was a psychiatrist who gave it to me. It was a doctor. And I got a 129, and then he told me afterwards some of it was timed, and I was kind of miffed because I'm 1 point away from genius, and I didn't know it was timed. I might have gotten in the 130s, right? Then I could, be in Mensa or whatever, get my card.
Yeah, you could pay money to be in Mensa. You have to subscribe to it. It's a hoax.
Yeah, it's like you're in Who's Who. Here's your order form to buy a copy. But yeah, so anyway, I just thought. But then I gave everyone a test, and I took a couple online tests, and I figured since I had a real one administered, and they give you all these puzzles, physical things to do, I took some online ones, and I got like a 129, 130. I took it until I got a 130 or 131, right? Because then I could say, oh, well, I'm a genius. But I was surprised that the tests, which definitely were not the exact same one, but similar things, almost every time I'd get about a 130. Just like the one for the doctor. I was shocked at how accurate or how similar result that they were. So I just started giving it to everybody. It worked, and that was I don't even know if it was legal, but we did it. to see if you were intelligent. But I guess somebody who was a total moron wouldn't agree to take an IQ test, or would forget her result later on a television show. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so no, anybody gets a 1560. That's how you can write so well and have such a vast knowledge, considering your relatively young age. All right, now you have something else on your Plus page that interested me, and it's kind of a precursor to our next story. From This American Life, I'll just, the first paragraph here, why would a company, it's called When Patents Attack. And the first paragraph, why would a company rent an office in a tiny town in East Texas, put up a nameplate on the door, and leave it completely empty for a year? The answer involves a controversial billionaire physicist in Seattle, a 40-pound cookbook, and a war waging right now all across the software and tech industries. If that's not a great opening line for a story, I don't know what is. Tell me, what is this story about? And tell me how it's a precursor to our next topic.
Well, This American Life is a great program. They have such a wide array of topics that they cover. But this piece in particular was like just dead on investigative journalism. It covers everything that's wrong with patents. And, they started in Silicon Valley, out in California, talking to software engineers and, asking them what they think about patents. And they were all patents. They all said that patents are ridiculous and they don't mean anything anymore. Because what has happened is that companies have gone out and purchased or patented things about the internet or, software. Everything as simple as the one that they list is a man who patented connecting to the internet to update software. And a lot of them are just as vague as that. Like someone has patented if you roll your mouse over something and something pops up, a little window with text or whatever, that's patented. And the problem is that there are multiple, like hundreds of patents about the same thing, and a lot of them overlap. And a few companies have decided to capitalize on these patents. So what they've done is started buying up patents. And these are companies that don't actually produce anything. They don't invent anything. They don't, actually do anything except for take smaller companies to court over things that they're violating patent law over. So, there was a great example of just a startup internet company that was about photo sharing that, their company ended up collapsing because they had to settle outside of court about a patent lawsuit. So This American Life actually tracked down one of these companies, and the people in the software world call these people patent trolls. They just exist to bug people and take them to court. So This American Life tracked down one of these companies, and they tracked them to this small town in Texas. They went to their office and, went with a lawyer that often deals with these cases. And he said he's never seen anyone come in or out of the office. He has never, heard of lights being on or anything. And, they knocked on the door, and it was great radio because you heard the door knocking, and, no one answered. And, so there's this whole building, it turns out, of just empty offices with, almost fake companies that just exist to take people to court over patents. And they make big bucks off of it. So this relates into the story that we have on the table today, which is Google is getting mad at Apple and a bunch of other groups for buying up patents because it's going to affect the way their Android software works. And this is not, this is just a part of the problem. Big companies have started to try to buy up patents. There was one patent-owning company that just sold off all their patents, and it was like a big rush to buy them. And they do that in hopes of protecting themselves in any way possible from these lawsuits because, big companies like Apple and Google get taken to court by these, non-existent companies over patents all the time. They just settle. Everyone, for the most part, always settle. So Yeah,
it's
a really interesting step.
it's risky because you don't know how a jury will go. But some of this stuff's stupid. You know, the idea of being able to click just once to buy something. That was, I think, the subject of a patent lawsuit. And then Google went berserk over this issue. Patent troll is a good term. There are people who they don't make anything. They just, I don't know. It's a scam. And then what happened? Google was criticizing Apple and Microsoft because they bid. Was it the Nortel patents, or Google bought those? But they described it as a hostile, organized campaign against Android by Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, and other companies, waged through bogus patents. And Microsoft and Apple have always been at each other's throats, so when they get in bed together, you have to start wondering what's going on. So what this is about, but it is a war being waged in the tech industry. You can't beat them through a better product. I mean, Android is free, right? And the iPhone is a proprietary operating system that you have to purchase an Apple product to get. And so now Android is almost right at about 50% of all the smartphones out there are Android. Second place is the iPhone. I think they're in the 20s, 23%, something like that. But it's hard to beat free. And just like our newspapers, all three of our newspapers are free. And in two of them, in one of the market, they're bigger than all the paid ones, because if you figure, once people realize it's a good paper and it's free, if you can't give it away more than somebody else is charging, then something's wrong with you, right? So they just do this approach. There was one person, or I think this is a thing people do. They'll take stock photos, put them on their website, and then look for other people who are using them and then sue them, or send them a letter saying, I'm going to sue you, or you can settle for $500. And what are you going to do? What's a lawyer cost? And you're going to lose, right? So that's a whole thing. Copyright trolls. And so Google's all up in arms, and now they're getting into the business. They just bought, it lost out on the Nortel patents. These companies spent $4.5 billion to get the patents. Are they going to build stuff using them? No. They're going to sue other companies. So what ends up happening is they spend $4 billion. Then they're going to go after Android, because they're going to accuse Android, even though probably there's no legit patent, nothing intentional. They're going to say, oh, this violates this mechanism by which you click here and this happens. This is a violation of a patent, and we can fight it for 10 years, or we can settle, and you just end up paying this patent tax back and forth. And now Google's going to have to buy a bunch of them, and the lawyers are going to make all the money, and the consumers are going to end up paying more for devices because of a bunch of lawyers who can't invent anything themselves. And it's just, I don't know, I'm disgusted by it. We've talked about this before on the show. But NPR, that's the kind of thing they do well. BBC, NPR, outfits like that, they're top-notch production. They really illustrate it. It's kind of random, weird stuff. You'll be driving and Glenn Beck or something's on, and I can't listen to it. And so you switch to NPR, and you'll discover some fascinating story right in the middle of the afternoon, that really the story has no commercial value in being told. No one's like the thing about the story about Henrietta Lacks, that her cells that have lived forever. That whole story. That's a fascinating story, and there's no commercial value in telling that story, but that's the kind of thing NPR does. So I like NPR.
Yeah.
Even the dangerous.
I recommend anyone.
Go ahead.
And I think that this is a great issue for anyone interested in technology, or specifically internet technology. Should definitely hop over. You can download it. I linked to it on my page. We listened to it off of our phone the other day. So it really just comes down to, the punchline of this whole thing is that the patent system, which was created originally to help inventors and help ingenuity, has, really started to inhibit the whole creative process. That it's made it really difficult for people with new ideas to actually profit off of their new ideas and, move forward with their businesses. So, hopefully if enough attention is drawn to it, this is the kind of thing that could change, because it's obvious that it's a mess. And they've talked to people in the patent agencies that, are well aware that it's a mess. I think there's the best example of like a physical patent that got really messy was a guy was saying that there's, several hundred patents on the concept of toasting bread. And, just it's something that, really needs to get reined in and fixed, especially in this age where, startup companies are the future of our economy, and a number of people have said that. And we need to encourage small business like that. And if patents are getting in the way, there's something really wrong.
Yeah, I just shared it, and I'll add it to the description for the show, so folks who want to watch this can just look under the YouTube video or at either of our sites. But yeah, it was it's in depth, because if you invent the light bulb, you have a right, or whatever. You spend years and years, you get the guy in the lab coat, and he's toiling away, and everyone's laughing at him. Finally, he invents the polio vaccine or whatever. You should be rewarded for the 20 years it took. That said, these guys are just disgusting. I don't know. I'm not sure if I shared it or if I commented on it, but anyway, I'm not sure what I did. All right, so that's When Patents Attack. Good story. All right. Everything you've ever learned about the moon has to be updated. This was interesting. Did you read this in depth? This is pretty interesting. I guess we used to have two moons. I guess the moon was, now I'm old, right? I remember when Pluto was a planet before it got downgraded to a dwarf.
I think everyone should. I think that was 2006 when that happened. Yeah, or 2007.
Yeah, who are they to say, all those things that they built. It was probably the companies that make the mobiles that they probably, you know what I mean?
All the posters and stuff.
Yeah, they've been around for 80 years, and they're still, all of a sudden you have to get new ones.
They were jealous of the people that made maps of Africa.
Yeah, like the antivirus software companies are probably on Elance, getting hackers to write new. Just kidding. But anyway, yeah. So I guess apparently the moon. We didn't have a moon, and then something hit our planet, and it went up in the air, and there were two moons, and then this moon smushed. What was interesting? Did you read the part about the speed? How that worked?
No, I didn't have a chance to read through the whole thing.
It was, I don't know, it was, they said it hit it at a slow speed of like 5,000 or 50,000 miles an hour, which I guess in cosmic, it's slow. And this supposedly happened 4.4 billion years ago. So nobody missed, it didn't happen while you were asleep. The smaller one was the moon. It was the moon we have now the bigger moon was 25 times bigger than the littler moon, the smaller moon, and apparently it was the smaller moon was about 600 miles wide, and it was going at 5,000 miles per hour. It crashed into the larger moon, and they said it took like 10 minutes to smush, and it would have been boring watching it, because it was like, how much longer, because just slowly going. And they said that it took, by the next day, it was kind of, everything was settled, and that's why the moon, I guess, is flat on the side we look at, but very mountainous on the other side. I don't know if there's any deep meaning of this, except all those poems, maybe have to be revised about the moons. And then they're just sort of, I guess nobody really cares. They were all at a buzz at the astronomy conference, some sort of conference of people who study this sort of thing. so people like me can aggregate it. But what do you think? Any hidden deep meaning on this whole the moons of Earth?
I don't think so. I mean, we've known for a while that the moon was part of the Earth originally, and it was away. And I kind of remember them saying that there might have been other bits that just, either didn't get stuck in our gravitational pull or burned up or what have you. So, yeah, it's pretty cool that, if two celestial bodies are moving slow enough that they can meld. But beyond the nerdiness of it, I don't think it drastically changes anything, does it?
I'm all distraught. No, I could care less. I think, it happened even before we were born. Okay, so there were 2 moons. Now there's 1. So there. You can process that. All right, there's 2 more stories we got, unless you got anything you're chomping at the bit to talk about. I'm going to swap the order. The Hitchcock film. Are you a Hitchcock fan? Apparently they found a single copy of a lost Alfred Hitchcock movie. But he wasn't the director, but he had a credit on it. He was 24 years old. He was born in 1920. So this would have been, and he died in 1980 at age 60. He was not he was not on the natural food diet. But so he was 24, so this would have been 1944. He was the writer, assistant director, editor, and art director. Like a small newspaper, you tend to multitask. Are you a fan? Do you like Alfred Hitchcock movies? Have you ever seen one?
Hitchcock movies.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, no, I love Hitchcock movies. It's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, I like
You're not on Wikipedia now, right?
No, I'm not. I actually have my computer closed, which is why I'm like blanking so bad. But
I guess there was Psycho, Pleasure Garden, The Birds, of course, Rear
that
Window.
One's hilarious. Sorry, The Birds is the only one that I really laugh at. But I think it's just because there's bits in it that are just unbelievably funny as far as horror movies go.
I was scared. I was a little kid. It was terrifying. I was a little kid when I watched it. My parents tortured me by making me watch that. But yeah, you never forget that stuff though. You never get it out of your head. But was it like, I mean, I never saw it as an adult, so was it like Reefer Madness, just so over the top it was funny?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, like there's a scene where the woman, like it's in the very end of the movie, and she goes upstairs into their house, and the birds are in the attic. So she like opens the door to the attic and sees all the birds, and instead of doing what any sane person would do, like running away, she steps into the attic and closes the door behind her. And it's just, I just remember going, why? Why are you locking yourself in a room with the birds?
Well. And it's always a woman who does something stupid in these movies, these old movies. It's very misogynistic. But, yeah, so, I don't know. I think it's cool they found another one, and hopefully it'll get some younger people exposed to some of these talents who accomplish such amazing things with technology that was inferior to what you have on a $60 or a free cell phone now. That's what's amazing. What you've got, even in my ghetto BlackBerry, I've got, probably better video quality than some of these guys were working with back in the olden days. So, so that's exciting. And, yeah, those movies, they were, I don't know. Some of them were...
Vertigo. Sorry. Vertigo was the one I was trying to think of. Horrible. That word that means dizzy. Yes, that's a good one.
Vertigo's a
hard
cause.
Hard to pick a favorite. They all have their high points. I also have to mention that The Simpsons has done a great job parodying them in the Treehouse of Horror annual episode.
All right, so that's our Hitchcock story for tonight. And then last story, Hulu this was interesting on a couple things. It brings up a lot of issues. This is from Reuters. Hulu is going to do some original content the way Netflix has done. Basically, Hulu's been a pipe. It was started, I think, by NBC and Fox and one of the other networks, and it's been a success. It's profitable. And what they'll typically do is they might put you might have to wait a week for an episode. They might have a couple, maybe you can watch 4 to 6 episodes of a hot show, but you can't watch older than that or something like that. And then before a new season like Lost comes on, you'll typically see they'll make all the old ones available, because it's the real confusing shows. Heroes, they made a mistake. The show Heroes, I actually got into a little bit, but I missed a few episodes, and I tried to catch up online so I could get back into it, and they wouldn't show them. And if you miss one episode of a show like that, you're done. And so I never watched it again. And it went on more, however long it went on, I didn't pay any attention to it because I couldn't watch the middle stuff. And I'll be damned if I'm going to go and buy the DVDs. If I can't watch it online, it doesn't exist to me. But anyway, so they're doing this story. It's a 6-episode, half-hour documentary called A Day in the Life. He's best known for his Super Size Me movie. And then this comes after Netflix has commissioned a 26-part series called House of Cards starring Kevin Spacey. So these are big-name folks, right? This isn't some fledgling college production. And it says, this is interesting, that TV companies and studios have started to worry that they will harm their lucrative multi-billion-dollar programming relationship with cable and satellite companies if newer popular shows are available for free or cheaply on video sites like Hulu and Netflix. And you have to remember, these guys, the cable companies like C-SPAN, Fox News, CNN, Discovery Channel, the cable companies pay for that content, and then they charge you, the viewer. So these channels get paid, except in some cases there's no money changing hands. In some cases, you have to pay the cable company to get coverage. That's what Fox News did. There was a story we talked about when they first started out. They paid like $11. They would pay per subscriber to get on the cable system. And I'm suggesting that Al Jazeera just fork out some cash and get coverage if they want to do so in the United States beyond the 3 systems they're on now. So like Fox News just said that from August 15th, only folks who are verified as pay TV subscribers will be able to watch shows like Glee and Bones for 8 days after the shows first air on TV. And then after 8 days, I guess it's up for grabs. Because they're trying to protect that business model. That's how these cable companies make their money from that's how the channels make their money, is from the cable companies paying them for the content. Hulu, Dish Online, Fox will be among the first to participate, but the Fox initiative will likely mean some Hulu users who are used to watching the day after they air on TV will now have to wait longer. And Hulu insiders expect other programmers to experiment with different models of making content available on its free website. Hulu's relationship with programmers is unique. It's owned by its primary programmers, News Corporation, Fox, Walt Disney, Comcast's NBC, and Providence Equity Partners. It may become further complicated because Hulu is currently up for sale, with companies including Yahoo and Google reportedly interested. That would be really interesting if Google bought them. I hope they get them. Hulu's Andy Forssell said to Reuters the company will consider making more original shows, but sees this as an experiment. We're talking to a couple other producers, and there are things in the pipeline, but our priority is thinking in terms of what our audience wants rather than thinking in terms of genres or filling viewer hours. What do you think about, is this just a natural thing to start saying we're not going to give it away for 8 days unless you're paying the cable company? Or is this clinging to a legacy model the way that the record companies were suing people before they finally embraced online distribution?
It's hard to tell. The move is a little surprising, especially since, a lot of these networks offer their shows on their own websites to watch. So I'm not sure where the difference is there. But, as soon as Hulu came along, it always kind of felt like something that was a little too good to be true. And then they really revved up the advertising, and people complained a lot. And they started offering most of their content with a subscription-based service, and people complained some more. And, it's always one of those things that, in order for a site like that to exist, it has to be making some money somehow. So, as far as the original content goes, yeah, I think that that's a great idea for them. I know that they've been the sole host for a web-based series in the past, so I'm not sure if that counts as original content, but I know that there's one series going on right now. I think it's called A Booth at the End, and I think that they're only on Hulu. But, I use Hulu instead of watching television, and I think that, there's probably an increasing number of people that are doing that just because it's the way technology is changing. So, we'll see. It might be that, these shows just, they find that people will watch them through, like, iTunes or, other mediums, and Hulu will lose that. But if not, I'm sure they will adapt. And the sale will probably help them having a fresh perspective on things.
Yeah, I think it's perception of value. The way that I was talking to a friend of mine who owns some McDonald's restaurants, and we were discussing the McChicken and the filet of fish, and I said, it diminishes the value of the filet of fish. You're charging, I think it's like $3 something, but the McChicken's on the dollar menu, so it's $1. Now, I used to own a restaurant, and Emily, you eat food and you go to the grocery store and buy food, and you're a great cook. You know that a breaded fish fillet patty doesn't cost much more or less than a breaded chicken patty, maybe a little more. But when you're McDonald's, that buying power. So when you charge $1 for something, you diminish the perceived value of that product. If you're charging over three times as much for something similar, and as equally as filling, but they're both delicious sandwiches. Anyway, so we started out with movies in theaters and radio, and then television came along, and the whole thing, the concept with TV was anybody could watch it for free. Of course, in other countries it's different. Like the United Kingdom, you have a tax, and that's what funds the BBC, the television tax. But in the United States, it was free, and they would have advertising, and it was all advertising supported. And then in the beginning, it was the companies that advertised. It was almost like buying time. The daytime dramas, the reason they're called soap operas is because the soap companies that currently advertise on daytime television, still to a degree, they actually would own the show. It was, Procter and Gamble presents whatever, or whatever company. And then there were some scandals, like the game show, they were cheating, the whatever the show was, and then they put some distance between the sponsors, until the way it is now is you really can't, if you're advertising on the O'Reilly Factor or on ABC News or what have you, you cannot tell Rupert Murdoch what Bill O'Reilly is allowed or not allowed to say. You can choose whether or not to advertise. You don't have control over the content. Same thing with dramatic series, although in some cases, like when Hallmark advertises that before a major holiday, they'll present some big, family-friendly movie. I'm sure they dictate what the movie is. But anyway, so we got this perception that shows with advertising should be free and we shouldn't have to pay anything for it. Then cable came along, and what they offered was, 60 channels 50 channels, and then now it's hundreds. And then that was worth $30 a month. And now, of course, it's a lot more money. And but I still think, I don't mind at all. You talk about people complaining about advertising. I'm all for hit shows that appeal to a tech-friendly audience or young audience that is more inclined to watch on the internet. Now I think, what are the numbers, Emily? Like 67%, 60 or 70% of people watch some online programming, video. But like the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, now the Comedy Central is ramping them up. I mean, you're seeing close to the number of ads you would see on the broadcast, and I'm for that. I want them to make money. I want them to earn enough money to keep that going so we can watch it online. And I do a similar thing with the newspapers. All three newspapers. I'm like the only newspaper left that doesn't break out all the stories individually online. And I've experimented with that here and there, and putting some stories up if it's a real breaking thing. But in general, I just put the whole newspaper up. So if you're Joe's Paint Shop or Emily's cooking utensil store, and you're on page 4 of the print paper, if you're going to read the paper online, no problem. I'm going to save 20 cents not having to print it, and you're going to see the same ad on page 4 of your PDF or your Scribd viewer or whatever platform we do that is in the print version. So I'm not screwing over the print advertisers by breaking it out online so I can make my $100 a year from the web ads. So I think it's the same thing. I encourage anything that is free stuff because it just expands the audience as long as I can earn a living doing it, which is very difficult on the internet. One of my editors in Northern Virginia sent me an article, an email saying that in Canada, I guess, online advertising had surpassed that of print advertising. And I wrote back, I said, yeah, but grossing and netting are two different things. For the one thing, there are a lot more websites that than printed products, right? And all of my websites put together, probably 20. We make, it's, I don't know, $100 a year or something ridiculous, nothing, maybe more, I don't know. But the print's where the money that funds all that is. You don't make any money online unless you're something like Drudge Report, where it's like one or two guys and they get 1 billion hits. But most of your sites like Huffington Post that have a staff producing, even with the content they get for free, like from us, they it took them years to make their first dollar profit. So I think this is great. I think more original content on something like this, if they can charge a little bit and get it, but and apparently some people are buying it, right, Emily? I mean, Hulu Plus, I think, is considered a success, right?
Yeah, and people have been comparing it to subscribing to Netflix. It's obvious that Hulu Plus doesn't have the command that Netflix does over movies yet, but there's some people that are arguing that it's a better source for television shows just because of the timeliness that they get things up there. I think it's just a changing dynamic, and there's always this issue of people resisting the idea of paying for things online, even though plenty of people do shopping online. I think that the online community really hates to pay for things on a whole. So it'll be interesting to see whether the sale goes through, and I think that if they're purchased by Google or Yahoo, depending, it's going to be a completely different, I imagine it would be a completely different service based on who purchases it. So
these things come and go. These things come and go. Remember the video site? Was it Zeus or something? I think it was right around the time Hulu came, before or after Hulu. I think it was like Zoost, Zoost or something. And they had these beautiful colors, all these it was beautiful, and they closed. I don't know. I can't even remember what they did. And then there was this other thing that it was some site. It was in the news, and I had a conversation with the owner. And I can't remember the site. It would play a YouTube. It would find hot online videos. You might have a Lady Gaga, and then the Al Sharpton, Pat Buchanan thing, and then an interesting thing from Discovery on the Shark Week or something. Just whatever's popular. and it would just play it like a TV channel, one after another. You don't click anything. And I can't remember that, but these people it's so innovative. I'm sure there's a patent on that. So if you try to do that, you'll be sued by Apple or Microsoft. I don't know. It's interesting, but we'll keep on top of it. Did you have any other stuff? I'll start checking your
no,
Plus page. Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much. Emily Williams is the senior political writer for the Lynchburg Times. You can check out all of her wonderful writing. That's 1560 SAT score writing for free at lynchburgtimes.com. I'm Dan McDermott. I'm the publisher of the Lynchburg Times, and so I have to put up with Emily's, who's actually the easiest to get along with person of all of them. Anyway, so this show is Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Every Friday, we just start a Google Plus week with Christina Trapolino and Daniel Bowie. They'll be on this week. It's going to be interesting. I want to dump my BlackBerry and get an Android, so we have some Android fanboys and fangirls who are going to tell me which Android phone to get, and I think we have a couple Apple fans who are going to tell me, no, get an iPhone. And then I'm literally going to go get a phone, probably online right after that conversation. Or from this guy I met who's a good guy. As long as I can get the 30-day guarantee, I might get it from the kiosk at the mall here. Good guy I met. But anyway, so that'll be happening Friday. That's our most viewed show, 8 p.m. Eastern. You're always welcome to call. The number's the same every time, 818-688-6625. And you can catch us all over the place, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, YouTube, and Justin.tv. We're live. So my G Plus is gplus.2/McDermott. I will see you there, and I thank you very much for checking us out. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night.